Welcome, everybody. We're very happy that you're joining us today for our second year of the professional development series towards inclusive accessibility in libraries, expanding possibilities for all ages and abilities. And going forward today, we'll use the acronym TIAL or TIAL as the shortened form of our series title. My name is Matt Giza, and I collaborate on TIAL along with my colleagues Ashley Sklar and Suzanne Kiss, both who are here today. And the three of us work in various roles and capacities within the Connecticut State Library's Division of Library Development. And you can learn more about TIAL on our LibGuide, and Suzanne will be sharing that in the chat in just a moment. We're here today for the first session in a five-part series called Creating Accessible Digital Documents. This mini-series is meant to be an introduction to digital document accessibility, and hopefully at the end of each workshop, you'll have a sense of the key elements used to make various types of digital documents accessible. After today, this mini-series will take place over the course of the next several months with workshops occurring every 2 weeks on Thursdays, same time at 10 a.m. We're sharing links to upcoming programs in the chat, and we're calling this workshop today Accessible Documents, and we'll get started with that in just a few moments. But first, a few housekeeping items. Zoom offers a live captioning feature, so please feel free to use and adjust that as needed. We are recording today's programming, and the recording and slides will be posted and made available for everyone. Give us a few days after today's workshop to just process everything and put everything together, but we will send an email alert out to everybody when we've posted the information. Throughout today, Suzanne and Ashley are going to be keeping an eye on the chat. So I'll pause a few places throughout my presentation to take questions. We'll also try to leave some time at the end for more questions, but you're welcome at any point to put your questions in the chat. Suzanne and Ashley will be monitoring that and alert me to those questions when we pause. Finally, be on the lookout towards the end for a brief survey link that you can use to provide feedback for this session. We'll follow up with that in an email. So with that, let's kind of get started. As I mentioned, my name is Matt Giza. I'm going to be the presenter for this mini-series. I serve as the director of the Connecticut Library for Accessible Books at the State Library, and that's also known as CT Lab. At CT Lab, we provide books and in audio and braille formats to Connecticut residents who cannot use print materials. Our patrons include people who are blind, have low vision, have perceptual or reading disabilities, and people who have a physical disability that impacts their ability to use print materials. Our work at CT Lab is very much centered around accessibility and making sure that people can access not just books, but all communication and materials from our library. That means that I regularly create all types of accessible digital documents. However, when I started in this role, I was not familiar with the process at all. So if this is brand new to you, that's okay. This is something that I just only recently came into and began learning about myself. But since I have been learning, it's become something that I've learned on the job, and it's become a passion of mine, and I'm excited to share this information and my passion with you today. So I'm going to give me a moment. I'm going to bring up my workshop slides and share my screen, and we'll dive into the content. So if someone can just give me a quick thumbs up or yes, actually I see a thumbs up. So today's agenda, we're really focusing on Microsoft Word accessibility, and towards the end, we'll leave a little time and talk about Microsoft Outlook accessibility. But many of the things we're talking about with Word are going to apply directly to Outlook. So just alerting you, that's going to be a shorter portion of our presentation. As I said, this is meant to be an introduction, so I'll be sharing information for you to kind of keep in mind as you go forward with creating accessible documents. We're also going to have workshop resources that we'll be sharing with you. So in addition to the recording, we will post the session slides, I've created a tip sheet that we'll also share with you. So these are all materials that will have resources that you can refer back to. So if you don't catch it, a particular resource here and now, live during the workshop, don't worry, the information will be forthcoming. So just to talk a little bit about accessibility in general and the benefits of accessibility. Um, the statistics that you generally hear right now is about 1 in 4 Americans have some form of a disability. So it is a higher percentage of our population. For folks who have a disability, represent a higher percentage of our population than many may realize. What we're talking about when we talk about accessibility in the context of digital documents are we're really thinking about better experience for folks who use the keyboard to navigate. So that for whatever reason, they're not using a mouse, so they're using a keyboard to navigate their way through information, and whether that's a website or a Word document or any other kind of document. It also applies to folks who are using screen readers or screen reading software. And if you're not familiar with what this software is, it is often used by folks who are blind or have low vision, and also used by folks who have a reading disability as well. And what it does is it can be used with a computer, but it also can be used with, um, you know, phones and tablets and things like that. It's built-in software that will read out the content and the information on any screen that the user is using. So even though some of what we're talking about might be primarily intended to serve a specific audience, oftentimes these things that we're doing to make things more accessible benefit all users. And I think, one of the classic examples is the example of captions. So captions were specifically designed for folks who are deaf and hard of hearing, but over time, as they became more widely used and accessible with the advent of new technologies, we find that captions are used by a wide range of people now, and we see them in all sorts of contexts being used by hearing people and not just folks who are deaf and hard of hearing. Another great example are curb cuts, which were initially to help with crossing streets for folks who might be wheelchair users. But of course, curb cuts benefit so many people, whether they're delivery people using hand trucks or other wheeled implements, folks who are pushing strollers, etc. So that's why we're talking about accessibility. I think it's important to acknowledge that we're focusing on digital documents right now too, because in 2024, the Department of Justice made a ruling related to Title II of the American with Disabilities Act. And with that ruling, they said that all digital content produced by state and local governments must be made accessible. And the deadline for that, implementing those changes and requirements related to the ruling is on a sliding scale. So for um, cities and different cities and other kind of municipalities with populations over 50,000, the deadline is April of 2026. And for smaller municipalities under 50,000 population, we're looking at an April 2027 deadline. So that has put a little bit more focus on this topic, I think, because of this ruling. Um, if you're interested in the ruling on our TIAL LibGuide, we have some great resources related to the ruling. We're not really going to dive into the details about the ruling, but I do want to acknowledge that's an important part of why we're presenting this series now. So getting back to accessible documents. So what are accessible documents? Well, and what we're doing is we're utilizing fonts, colors, alternative or alt text, and other document structures to improve the navigation and readability of the document. Some of what we're talking about and that we'll be covering, we can visibly see these things that we're implementing to make the documents accessible. Some things, when we add them and implement them to a particular document, we're not necessarily seeing them on the screen, but they are impacting the code. And the way screen reader technology works is that they're not simply just reading the text that's on the screen, they're actually reading the code. So I'll try to flag and give you some examples throughout the presentation today of how a screen reader might interpret the information and why it's important to do things and how those changes are used by screen reader software. Um, in our context, we're talking about today accessible documents to be Word documents, emails. We're not going to cover PDFs today. That's going to be its own standalone workshop coming up in a few weeks. So stay tuned, and we will do a deeper dive into PDFs in a coming workshop. When it comes to using Microsoft Word and making Microsoft Word documents accessible, there are about 8 different elements that we want to keep in mind. And if this work is new to you, 8 different elements might seem like a lot. And I acknowledge that it can sometimes feel a little overwhelming with any new topic. However, I think what you'll find is as you start to spend more time learning about it, but also implementing and doing this work, it just becomes integrated into your workflow. And, it really doesn't take very much extra time, especially when it comes to creating an accessible Word document. Extra time sometimes gets involved with things like PDFs, and we'll talk about that. But creating the Word document, that's relatively quick, and it doesn't take very many extra steps. It's just knowing these various elements. So those include document title, fonts, heading styles, list structure, alt text or alternative text, accessible tables, descriptive link text, and using the Microsoft Word built-in accessibility checker. We're going to kind of do a quick overview of all these elements on the forthcoming slides. I do want to say, if I cover something in a slide, don't worry if it doesn't kind of make a lot of sense, because what I'm going to do is introduce the concept on the slides, and then we're going to turn to a sample document, and we're really going to dive into each of these together and mitigate or remediate a sample document that I have put together. So I think when we get to the sample document, some of what we're talking about will start to become a little bit more clear if it isn't already. So jumping in with document title, this is meant to communicate the purpose or intent of your document. And in this context, we're not talking about what you put at the very top of your Word document. We're actually talking about um, going into a very specific part of Word and adding the document title as metadata. So this is an example of, it's not necessarily something that's visible, it's impacting the code and alerting a screen reader that this information is there. When a screen reader opens any file of any kind, it's going to do one of two things. If there is a document title, it will read the document title. If there is not a document title, it's going to default to whatever the file name is. And oftentimes file names, as we know, aren't the most helpful. So, they're not always the most descriptive or communicating the purpose of the document. So when we can, we want to force the Word to basically use the document title. So to do that, what you'll do is go to File, and then when you select File, it'll open a window like the screenshot that's here. And on the left side of that file window is going to be the Info button. And if you select Info, it will display the screenshot that I have here with a column on the right side that is headed by the heading Properties. And under the Properties heading, there is a field for title. So you can click into that field, enter your document title, and then to exit, there is a back button in the top left of this screen, or you can just escape and it will return you to your Word document and you can continue working. I'll also note that the document title, you can insert that right at the start when you're creating the document. That tends to be what I do if I remember to do it. But if you don't remember, or for whatever reason have an existing document and you want to go back and add it, you can add this at any point. So this can be done at any point in the workflow. It doesn't have to be done right at the start. Fonts. So fonts, generally it's considered to that sans serif fonts are easier to read, especially in the context of digital documents. Um, and on the screen is an example of a serifed font on the left side and with the word text and a sans serif font on the right side. Serifs are these decorative elements or embellishments that are on particular letters of fonts. The classic example of a serif font is Times New Roman. And with the capital letter T in text, we have a serif at the end of the crossbar of the T, that horizontal crossbar. So some people will call them tails and feet. So this is an example of a tail at the top of that T. And at the base of the letter T at the bottom is another serif. And that is an example of what somebody might call the feet. Um, The sans serif font, of course, means it doesn't have these decorative embellishments. And examples of sans serif fonts are uh, Arial, Helvetica, Calibri. These are all examples of serif fonts. I think at this point, Microsoft Word defaults to a sans serif font. Um, so chances are, if you're using default settings in Microsoft Word, you're already set up with a sans serif font. The other thing I'll say about fonts is that consider font size. I didn't include the text on the slide here, but for a regular print document, you would want to use 12-point font and larger. And if you're considering creating a large print version of your document, then I recommend using 16-point font or larger. I'm seeing more and more recommendations of 18-point font or larger for your body text. So just keep that in mind that you do want to also consider font size in addition to the selection of the fonts. Heading styles. Heading styles are an example of something that we can see both visually and impacts the coding as and how a screen reader will read out the information that has been given or assigned a heading. Um, to access the headings and the heading styles in Word, you'll go to the Home tab, and then in that Home ribbon, there is a styles pane, and I've got that circled in red in the screenshot that I have here. You can also, so you can, to add to make text a heading level, you would just select that text, that word, or that phrase, and then come up into that styles pane and click on the appropriate heading, heading one, two, and so forth. Um, what headings do is they give us a sense of the structure of your document. Historically, I don't know about you, when if I wanted to like indicate different sections within a document, I would just highlight that text, I would bold it, and I would increase the font size. And visually that works. It does convey different, can be used to denote different sections. However, with the screen reader, when you have assigned text the heading in the styles pane, it will then announce heading level one, heading level two, and then read the text that you've assigned to that heading level. So if it was the text that you gave heading level two, for example, was section one of your document, and that was the document text, it would read heading level two, section two, um, out loud as somebody was navigating through that document. The other thing that can happen is that a screen reader can use a keyboard command and open up and then select the heading they would like to visit. So they don't have to navigate all the way through the body of a document to find the information they want. They can target a specific section. few other things to talk about headings. One, you generally don't assign more than one heading level one to a document. Um, so it's just going to be one heading level one per document, and that's usually going to be whatever the document title that you want to have visibly showing on your document. And we use heading to convey the sections and subsections of a document, and we want to use those heading in an order that is very much like using outline order. So if we have one level, heading level one in our document, our then major sections of the document throughout it would be assigned heading level two, and any subsections that follow under heading level two would be assigned heading three, four, five, as needed. So if you think of outlines when you're assigning to headings, this is how you want to use them so you can actually nest various headings under each other to show that relationship and structure of a document. So I'll pause there and see if there are any questions from the group. You can either unmute yourself, or if you've got a question in the chat, you can type it into the chat. So I'll give folks a moment to either unmute or type, and I'm going to take a sip of water.
I'm not seeing any questions yet in the chat, Matt, but we do invite folks to put them there. Or at this point, if you want to unmute and ask a question too, you are welcome.
Right. Thank you. All right. So seeing that there don't seem to be any questions right now, I'm going to continue on. If the questions do come in, please let us know.
Oh, I spoke too soon. Matt, a question.
Sure.
Hang on one second so I can actually see it. So will adding a new H1 heading automatically read as a new section?
So it wouldn't automatically read it as a new section. It would just read it as heading level one. Um, and again, you want to use heading level one really just for the document title that is appearing or displaying at the top of your document. So if my document title was heading styles, for example, like this slide title, um, then that would be heading level one. And if I was going to then talk about have subsections, I would assign it heading level two. So this might, I think, and I've got headings in our sample document, so we'll see how we can use styles pane to assign that, and it might be a little bit more clear as we get into the sample document.
Thank you. Jared, if that answered your question, just or it did not answer your question, you can let us know. This question too might be good to circle back to when you're doing the document map, but this Chris is noticing that the choices for H2 are in blue. How can one set an H2 with black type?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We'll cover that in the sample document.
Yeah.
So, Ashley, if you and Chris, if you can just help me remember when we get there, but that is something I definitely intend to show everybody. It is possible to modify your headings, both choosing different colors, bold, unbold. You can use different fonts if you want, that type of thing. So there's a lot of customization you can do with the headings, and we'll cover that.
And this too might be a good one to come back to when we're in the test document. But Katrina is asking, what do you do if you have more than 5 headings?
It'll just keep adding. Word will just if it detects that heading level five has been used, it then automatically in that styles pane will add a heading level six for you. So you don't have to make any additions yourself. Word kind of auto detects that and makes that addition here for you.
Great. That's all the questions we have at the moment.
Great. All right. So we'll carry on with list structure. And just like headings, list structure is something that we can both visibly see as a sighted person in our document, and also it is embedding code for screen readers so that they get good information as well, that they're encountering a list. So to properly format a list, what you want to do is navigate under the Home tab in Word, and then in the paragraph section are the different types of lists that you can create. There's the first icon that you encounter is a bulleted list, then a numbered list, and then outline that list. So all of these, if you have text that you are going to put into a list of any kind, whether it's bulleted, numbered, or outline form, you'll want to make the appropriate selection, highlight your text, and then select that button. And the way, once you've done that, and I'll show you how to like confirm that you've got a properly formatted list in the sample document. But what this does is it'll tell the screen reader that this is a bulleted list or a numbered list, and the screen reader will read out that information. So it'll read something like list of 5 items if there are 5 items in that list. And it might even say if it's a bulleted list or a numbered list. It depends on screen reader settings, but it'll say list of 5 items, list item one, and then it will read the text that is on list item one. And then it automatically goes to list item two, announces list item two, and then names, the text or reads out the text that has been assigned to list item two. So this allows a screen reader user to help them develop a sort of mental map of the list within the document. And it is possible to nest the list so you can have different subsections within your list. And screen readers most often will even say nested list if you've started to add sort of a subsection within a list. So it's giving the user that information about the relationship of the items within that list. So alt text, we could probably do a standalone workshop on alt text or alternative text alone. And so this is just going to be a real quick introduction, but I will say I do have a slide that we'll see in about 1 or 2 slides from now that has a couple of links, and we'll have other linked resources on the TIAL LibGuide related to alternative or alt text. So this is probably one of the things that can be most confusing for people when they're first learning about it. So if you're feeling a little unsettled as we talk about alt text, that's okay. It's something that just takes a little practice. And the other thing is that there aren't necessarily hard and fast rules. There's for describing things, there's a lot of leeway. And so we'll talk about some general best practices to keep in mind as you're using alt text. And like I said, you'll have some resources that you can refer to, and I'll highlight them in a moment. So alt text is used for images within a Word document. And what it does is if alt text has been assigned to an image, it provides the screen reader, when it encounters the image, will say image or graphic, and then it will read the alt text that's been assigned. If there is no alt text that's been assigned and it hasn't been marked decorative, and we'll talk about what that means in a second, what will happen is the screen reader will read the file name. And again, as I said earlier, file names aren't always usually the most helpful or descriptive. So if it's important information that if the graphic is important for your user to know what it is, what's going on in that graphic, or if it's a table or a chart, what this table or chart is about, a little bit of additional context, then you'll want to use alt text. To do that, what you do is select the image within your Word document and then right click on it. And then it'll open a little menu box and you can choose View Alt Text. And once you have made that selection, it opens up a little window on the right side of your Word document typically. And I've got a screenshot of this window. It's got the header of alt text, and it asks you a question. How would you describe this object and its context to someone who is blind or low vision? And it gives you a couple of things to consider, like the subject in detail, the setting, the actions or interactions, or any other relevant information. And then there's a field where you can enter the alt text. You can also, there's a button below that field for the text box where there's an option to checkbox approve alt text. You would select this button if you're relying on Word to generate the alt text for you, which more on that in a moment. And then there's also mark as decorative, and you can check this. So if the graphic or the image that you're included is purely decorative, or the information is conveyed somewhere else on the slide and doesn't need to be conveyed to the user solely by that graphic, then you can mark it as decorative. A good example is that on this slide right now, in the top right corner of the slide, is a graphic that is part of the Connecticut State Library logo. It's multicolored, kind of almost looks like flower petals, but it also looks like a book on its spine that's been splayed open with the pages kind of fanning open. Um, this conveys no information to our user. So all of these elements throughout my slideshow are marked as decorative. And so what happens when you mark it as decorative is the screen reader software will just skip it. So it is a nice option. You're not having to, as a screen reader, hear the same Connecticut State Library logo graphic over and over, and if it repeats itself like it does throughout my slide deck here. Um, what else? I've got another. Oh, yes. So do beware of the AI generated alt text in Word. So on my screen is a photograph of a digital talking book machine from CT Lab. It's black or navy blue in color. It has mostly white, but also some colored buttons that are used to operate it. And the buttons are different shapes as well. And sitting alongside that is a blue plastic container that opens like a clamshell. And sitting in that right now, that mailing container is open, and sitting inside of it is a digital talking book cartridge that is used by the talking book machine. When I rely on the word generated AI alt text, I get a black and blue electronic device. That doesn't really convey a lot of information at all about what this image is. Now, the description I just gave you is a little long. So you might not want that long of a description that I just spoke out loud. So a shortened form might be what I have provided as the alt text that I came up with this image, which is a digital talking book player and talking book cartridge. We could just stop right there. That may be sufficient enough, as just one sentence. But if we wanted to offer a little bit more description, as I have, we can go on and say the cartridge sits inside a blue plastic mailing container. The mailing container's lid is flipped up to expose the cartridge. So one thing that to consider when you're doing an image description for alt text is convey the most essential information first, and then with your subsequent sentences, if you're adding additional sentences, that's where you can convey additional details about that particular image. Um, so that is, a quick introduction to alt text and a little warning about AI generated alt text from Microsoft Word. A little bit additional items to consider related to alt text. You really do want to consider first and foremost, as I alluded to when I first brought up this topic, what is the purpose or the context of the image within your document? If it is essential to the document and the understanding of the document, then by all means, you should use alt text. If it's not essential, or if the information is conveyed somewhere else in the document, in the body text, then you can consider marking it as decorative, or you might want to just go ahead and mark it as decorative. So this is, yeah, sort of a really good guiding principle right here to keep these things in mind, both the purpose of the image, and then ask yourself, is it essential or is it not essential? And then that can begin your decision-making process as you move forward with adding alt text, or in some cases, marking it as decorative. I promised resources. These resources will be in the slide deck. I've linked to WebAIM and WCAG resources. WCAG stands for Web Content Access Group. So there's an alternative text article, there's an images tutorial from WCAG, and then WCAG's alt text decision tree is something I'd like to specifically encourage you to take a look at because it's a great way of when you have an image and you're like, should I mark it as decorative? You can open up the decision tree and then it will ask you a question. Depending on whether you answer yes or no to that first question, you then follow through that sort of flow chart or decision tree with subsequent questions to consider how this image is, or graphic is going to be used in your document, and it will help you arrive at a decision whether you should use alt text with how you should use it, and or if you can just go ahead and mark it as decorative. Um, that seems like a good spot to, I bet there are questions, so let's pause and see if there are any alt text questions.
I'm gonna give folks a moment. There's not questions, but again, at this point, you can either take a minute, type your questions into the chat. But if it's easier for you to unmute and speak your question, we welcome that too at this time.
And we will cover an example of how to do this in the sample document too. So there will be a live demonstration.
All right, I'm still not seeing anything, Matt, but I'll
Okay,
interrupt if something comes in quick.
sure. So tables. Tables are another thing that, like alt text, it can be sometimes get a little messy. Um, but I think the golden rule for tables and Word is if you can convey the information in another way in your document, that's probably the preferred method. If you can't, that's okay. Then simple is best when it comes to tables within Word. Um, it's also important to know that you want to use tables for data and not for the layout of your page or for text. Of course, you can use text to like indicate item type or something like that if you're reporting statistics or something, but you don't want to use it for the page layout as sometimes is done. With the table, as I said, simple is best. So use a simple column and row layout. And if you are in a situation where perhaps you've created tables in Excel and you want to import them into your Word document and have them displayed within the Word document, if it's a really complex table, the recommendation would be to, in that Excel document, break those complex tables into simple, basic tables and then insert them into your Word document. Um, complex tables can be hard for sighted people, and the way tables, screen readers are basically counting rows and cells and tables and presenting the information that way. So if you're not careful about how you're setting up your tables, this can create a really challenging experience for somebody who's either using a screen reader or navigating that table using the tab key or the keyboard as their primary way of navigating through the document. Uh, we are going to have a standalone session on Microsoft Excel, so do know that we'll be covering information about creating accessible spreadsheets in a future session. To add the table into Word, the best method to use is to go to Insert at the top of the Word document, and I'll show you how to do this in the sample document, then select Table, and you'll want to choose and manually enter in that table window the number of rows and columns. If you use the table draw feature that's available in Word, my understanding is that it doesn't properly code the table and identify the table properly. So it's going to create a table that might not be accessible. So use the first method of insert table and then manually insert the number of or enter the number of columns and rows. And I'll walk us through this in the sample document as part of our demonstration. A few other things to keep in mind with tables. After you've entered the table data, consider giving your table a caption. This can just be like a brief title or caption. You can insert captions under the reference tab and then select insert caption, and that'll allow you to type in your table caption. We also, with tables, want to identify the header row. I'll show you how to do this in the sample document. And we can add alt text for tables. And so the caption might be a brief title, and that might convey some information, but we might want to use alt text to give a little bit more of an explanatory note about what this table or what this data is and how it relates to the document, the rest of the document that you have. So that is something you can do, and I will show you how to enter alt text or add alt text for a table as well in our sample doc. A couple of additional resources for tables. Perkins Library and Perkins School for the Blind are they have some great resources if you search their website, or they may come up if you're Googling information about accessible content. But I've linked one related to creating accessible tables. And WebAIM, one of the other resources that I alluded to, has a good article about how to add table headers. So these are some additional resources that you can refer back to in addition to what we are covering together. Descriptive links. So anytime we're adding a link, a hyperlink to our Word document, especially if it's going to be a digital only document, it's never meant to be printed out, then you want to avoid copy and pasting and putting the full URL into the body. You would, however, want to use the full URL if this was intended to be a document that was printed out and is mainly going to be delivered as a hard copy. That way, the person has the full URL when they're reading your hard copy version. But for digital Word documents that are pretty much going to be consumed primarily only in their digital format, then we'll want to avoid using full URL. Instead, what we want to do is use what's often referred to as descriptive links or contextual links. In this case, what we'll do is we'll take some body text, we'll highlight it, and then we'll hyperlink that word or that phrase. There's an example of this at the bottom of the slide. So the sentence that I have is learn more about editing links in Word from WebAIM. So the phrase editing links in Word has been hyperlinked, and visually we can tell that it has because it's the text color or font color is blue and it is underlined. So those are two indicators of a link within a Word document. So the way a screen reader would encounter this is it would read out, learn more about editing links in Word from WebAIM. Or sometimes it'll be learn more about editing links in Word link. So the word link will be either before the hyperlink or after when a screen reader reads it out. Different screen readers handle it differently. So as I said, if you want to add a hyperlink, you just select your phrase with your cursor, then right click, insert link, and paste that URL right into the link editor, and that will create the hyperlink for you. And that's really all you need to do for descriptive links. It's important to avoid things like click here or link here for your descriptive links. They're not very descriptive in the first part. And the other thing to note is that just like when I described when I was talking about headers or headings, there it's possible for a screen reader to open up a window that lists all of the links in the document. And they can just use their cursor key then to navigate down through the list of links. If that person who is opening their list of links from a Word document hears click here, link here, link here, they have no idea where they're going. So the purpose of the descriptive link is to really help a user know what's going to happen when they click on that link or where they're going to go when they click on that link. And it's especially important for folks who are using a screen reader so that they hear, instead of click here, editing links in Word. editing tables in Word as their list of links as opposed to link here. Uh, any questions about descriptive links or content that I've covered since our last break for questions?
We don't have anything in the chat at the moment, but take a minute and type your questions if you have them. And you are also always welcome to unmute and speak your question to us. Matt, I'll keep an eye there for a moment, but if you want to
Sure.
keep going.
This is the last slide before we jump into the sample document, and um, it's to call out your attention to that there is a built-in accessibility checker within Microsoft Word. It's called the Accessibility Checker. You can access it by going to the Review tab and then clicking the Check Accessibility button. And you can have this running while you edit a Word document. You can add it so that you show the accessibility status of the document in the Word document status bar. So you can set that up and check accessibility and then options. And there's a checkbox where you can select show accessibility status for the accessibility assistant in the status bar. Um, I will emphasize the accessibility checker will not cover and check for all of the elements we've discussed here. It will pick up on things like alt text or missing alt text. It is starting to look at color contrast, which we haven't talked about color contrast today. And if you've been doing this work, you might be saying, well, he hasn't talked about color contrast. I know I purposely left it for the PowerPoint session where I think it's a little bit more impactful and we often run into more contrast issues. Um, so it will pick up on some of those things, but it won't always pick up on things like document title or list structure uh, and so forth. So it's important to know what the capabilities of the accessibility checker are and use it, but not rely on it as the sole method of verifying whether or not you have an accessible document. We just have to know what those important elements are, kind of internalize those into our workflow, or have the tip sheet that I'll share with everyone. Refer back to that, and that you can kind of check against that kind of thing to verify that you have a truly accessible document. So let's. I'm gonna
Matt, can
stop,
I jump in with a
please.
question real
Yeah,
quick before you move into the next section? A question here that I think we will cover maybe in an upcoming workshop. But if you convert a Word document to a PDF, do any of the accessibility features come along with it, or are they lost when it is converted?
great question. And the answer is generally yes. Like if you've done all of the things that we've talked about, what you're doing is setting yourself up for success by creating what we often refer to as an accessible source document. And that when you convert it to a PDF, the PDF conversion process, it will automatically add what are called the accessibility tags to that PDF. And that is the metadata that helps screen reader software navigate through a PDF. So by doing what we're talking about here in a Word document, you are setting it up so that it automatically creates that tagging. You can run into some problems, and we'll talk about that more in the PDF session. But that's the short answer is that yes. And the other important thing to know is too, and we'll cover this in PDFs, is that if you start working with a PDF and find you need to make some corrections, the best thing to do is go back to your original source document, that Word document, and make your corrections there, and then convert it again to a PDF after you've made your corrections. Ashley, any other questions?
No, just that one, and a thank you for that response too.
Great. Okay, I'm just going to, can we confirm that the tip sheet is displayed. Okay, so I've created just a one-page Word document and I've got it zoomed in. Does this size display work for folks? Should I
Mm,
enlarge?
Yeah, if you could make it a little bit bigger, Matt, I think that would, I'm speaking for myself because I can only
No,
see
that's
my
helpful.
screen, but bigger is even a little bigger, maybe.
Yeah. How's
Cool.
this?
That's great. Thank
That's
you.
great. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to give us a quick overview. So we've got what looks like our document title here. We've got some indication of a section header, and we'll review all of this. It looks like we have a list here, but it's not really formatted as a list. We've got an image. We've got a full URL that we'll need to do something about. We've got another section header, and we've got a table. So through all of this, we have some, the various elements that we've talked about in the slides that we'll address as we look at this document. So I mentioned that when I remember, I always try to add the document title first. So that's what we'll go and do. So remember, for this, we're not talking about this text here that appears at the top of the Word document. We're actually talking about the metadata document title that we need to access by going to File. And then I'm clicking here on the left side on Info. So now on the info screen, on the right column is the properties heading, and a few choices down is the title field. Now I have in this case already given it a title, accessible document sample. That's probably sufficient. I don't think I need to change that. But if I wanted to, you can see I've now been able to click into this field. I can either add it if needed or edit it as needed. And then to exit this, again, you can use the back button or the escape key on your keyboard. So I'm going to go ahead and use the escape key, and that takes us back to our Word document for editing. So now this first phrase, CT Lab Overview, is intended to be the document title. So I want to assign a heading level 1 to this. So we're on the Home tab, and here's the Styles pane. So you can see normal, no spacing heading. Here's heading level 1, heading 2, and so forth. I find that with the styles pane, I like to, in the lower right corner of that little styles section, is a square with an arrow pointing down and to the right. This allows me to pop that styles pane out into the right side of my Word document. And now I have an easier to review list. I also find this helpful because when we want to modify and make changes to the formatting of the heading, like the colors or the size, etc., it's easy to access that from this list. So I'm going to go ahead and select this text, and I'm going to come over into my styles window and click on heading 1. So now that I've done that, notice it assigned it to whatever settings were for font size and bold and so forth in heading level 1. It also, if you look over here to the left, there's a little arrow that is to the left of the C on CT Lab. This little chevron or arrow allows us to collapse or expand. So it's showing that now with heading level 1, all the content on this document falls under heading level 1 right now. So it's possible for us to manipulate that if you want. I just wanted to show that's what that arrow does if you were to click on it. And now right below this, we have another section, which is going to be one of the major sections of the document. So I will assign this heading level 2. And we can verify which heading has been assigned to different text by looking in the styles pane. Notice that right now, because I have clicked onto section 1 types of services, it in my styles pane over here is indicating with a blue rectangular outline that heading level 2 is selected. And if I click onto CT Lab overview, notice heading level 1 is selected. So that's how I can verify that I've assigned headings and what heading level I've assigned each phrase. Now, there was a question earlier about, well, what if I want to change things? So if I want to change heading level 2, I here on the right-hand side, alongside heading 2, I can mouse over the arrow. It opens up a little menu option, and I'll select Modify. Now in the Modify style window, I can make my changes. So I think the example somebody asked, Microsoft defaults to blue usually for these settings. I've changed it to black in my case. But if we wanted to choose like a dark blue or something like that for heading level 2, we could change our font color there, bold or unbold. We can increase the font size. We could change the font and so forth. And then after I'm happy with those changes, I can click OK in this window. And notice if I've already assigned heading level 2 to the text, it auto updates that text throughout the body. So we don't have to go back and make those changes. So far we've assigned heading level 1 to our document title, heading level 2 to our section, and now as we navigate down through our text, we've got a list. So I want this to be a numbered list. So I've selected the entire content and going on the home page or home tab, I'm going into the paragraph section right here. And first option is bulleted list. Next option is numbered list. I'll select that and automatically it gives my sequential numbering. We can tell that this is a properly formatted list as far as like structure goes by looking back up into the paragraph window. Notice that my list is now a darker, because I have selected the contents of the list, is the list button, the numbered list button is darker gray. So if I were to click out of the list, that goes away. But as soon as I click back in the list, I can use this as a way of visually confirming that I've got a properly formatted and structured list that will read as we talked about within the when being read by a screen reader. All right. This is we're counting an image, and this is a good little moment to pause and talk about the built-in word accessibility checker because we see this little icon with the person kind of with outstretched arms and legs. This is the icon that's used to flag accessibility issues as they arise. Um, if we want to check our settings for the accessibility checker, again, that's under review. And then we go to check accessibility and under options, accessibility is where we can make some customizations to our accessibility checker as we like. So I've got it showing the accessibility status in line with the document. That is what this little icon means. Showing the accessibility status of the assistant in the status bar is right down here at the bottom of my Word document, and it's telling me accessibility, investigate. So if there's something that needs to be corrected that the accessibility checker has flagged, then it will be noted here, and you can at any time, I'll just cancel and close this. You can anytime click into the status bar to investigate. Um, and it's telling me a couple things, missing a table header and missing alt text. So we're going to address some of these. Once we've made all of our corrections that at least the accessibility assistant can catch, it will say accessibility good to go down here in this status bar. So if you're working through your document and you've been implementing these things as you go along, likely you're seeing accessibility good to go. And there may not be things that you have to follow up with the assistant. So there is missing alt text. So I could either do one of two things. Since I have the assistant open, I can click on this bar here in the accessibility assistant, and it will take me to the alt text. Or if I didn't have that open, I can just select the image, right click, and go to view alt text. So either one works. Um, we can make two choices, add alt text, or we can mark as decorative. So if I mark as decorative, it will skip this image. But if I thought this image was essential to the understanding of the document, I could then come here into my text box where I could then type my one or two sentences. Uh, so this is a little off the cuff on the fly description. Close up of a hand holding a mobile device with the Bard mobile app open on its screen. I might want to add more details. I might be happy with this for now. Purposes of time, I'm just going to um, leave this description as I have, and that will satisfy the alt text requirement. Um, any questions so far on the sample document? Anything that I've maybe went through a little too fast you want me to return to, or if we're okay, we'll continue working through this doc.
Matt, I have a question about the image.
Yes,
Is that an example of something that you could also have marked as decorative?
sure. Yeah, because at least in the context of, we don't, this is a sample document, but as I've presented the information here, this doesn't seem like it is conveying specific information. So it might actually be a better choice to mark it as decorative. However, if I knew I was going to add a section here about Bard and elaborate
Right.
and maybe talk about Bard Mobile, then I probably, want to use the alt text that I've used. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying.
Yeah. Of course. Any other questions in the chat right now, Suzanne or Ashley? All right. So we've come down.
Oh,
Yeah.
one question. This carries is not seeing options under check accessibility.
So Gary, you're talking about this section right here.
Yes. So I don't know if it's because I have an old version of Word or
Mm,
Yeah, and maybe just be the version of Word you're working with. We can certainly maybe, if you want to follow up with me, I'm going to have my contact information at the end on the slide. So you're welcome to follow up with me elsewhere. If you're comfortable, you could always do a little Googling. If you know which version of Word you have, you might be able to get the Microsoft Office, kind of Word tip sheet for that Microsoft puts together on their website for different versions of Word.
okay. Yeah, I'm wondering if it's just under if I go to like file info and then go to options there, whether it might be kind of buried in one of
Yeah,
these.
that is another, I think, way of getting it, because when I open up that options accessibility, you notice it really is the word options. And then we're here in this case, we've got accessibility selected. But it is where you can make other customizations or optional settings for Word.
Yeah,
So you
it's
might
under,
try there.
yeah, my option is ease of access. So,
Ah,
so that's
oh,
where it is.
okay, good, good.
Okay.
I'm glad we found it, or you
All right.
found it
Thank
really.
you.
You didn't need much help from me. Um, all right, so here we have another thing that we talked about, which is links. So we've got a full URL, which that we're going to assume that this document is meant to be consumed primarily digitally. So we don't want this URL to display. So I think what I will do is I'm going to copy this link and by highlighting it. And then what I really want the contextual or descriptive link to say is more information on Bard. So I will select that now and then right click. And from that list of options, link. And this brings up our insert hyperlink window. In the bottom is the address bar. So this is, I want to click my cursor into here and then paste that URL here. If I decided I wanted to edit the text to display for that descriptive link, I could make the change here. I will often use this if I'm editing a document, reusing something, or I decide, the link's the same, but I think I want to use a different descriptive text. I might make those changes here by going to, I'll show you in a second. So I've clicking OK, we can see we now have our blue font indicating it's a hyperlink that's underlined. If I wanted to edit this at any point, I just right click on the link and I could go to either remove it if I want to remove it entirely, or if I want to make any changes either to the URL or to the descriptive text, I can go to edit hyperlink and I'm back in that window and can make my changes. So since we've got the URL, I'll go ahead and delete that. And, obviously, if this was the document that we are truly working on, I'd probably need to add some more information to this sentence. But I think for the purposes of the demonstration, hopefully this is enough to convey the important information about how to add descriptive links and create those descriptive links. All right, so scrolling down through the document, we're almost done. Here we have another section. So I can come back to the Home tab, and this is heading level 2 in my styles window, or I could again do the pop out, which that's my preference in most cases. I'll just select heading level 2, and now you can see it automatically assigns it to the formatting that we've assigned for heading level 2 that we made a few minutes ago. All right, and now this brings us to the table. So we've got a simple table. This is a good start. If we were starting from scratch, we would go to Insert at the top of our Word screen, Table, and then we want to choose not Draw Table, but instead Insert Table. And here's where I was talking about how you can manually enter the number of columns and the number of rows for your table. So this is the preferred method of ensuring that it's going to be as accessible as possible for folks who are using screen readers. Since I've already have my table pretty much set up, I'm not going to make any changes here. I'm just going to hit cancel to exit out of it. But that is how we would create the table from scratch. Now that we have the table created, there's a few things to do. One is we can make sure for adding things like alt text and header rows, we need to have the table selected. And then that will give us this added option at the top of Word with table design. So there's a few things we'll check. One of the things that the accessibility checker flagged for us, and then we talked about in the slides, was header row. That's telling us that we want this first row that has the item type in the first cell and in the cell to the right of that number of circulations to be our header row. And by doing this, it's adding some metadata so that when a screen reader encounters this, often most screen readers will then repeat the header row name as it goes down through different cells. So for example, if we were to navigate to hard copy Braille, it would say item type hard copy Braille, number of circulations 50. That's how it would read it. So we're getting a sort of easier way to understand the data as we would if we were to tab through and move basically from left to right through our table. I mentioned we could also add a caption, and we can do that under review, or sorry, no, references, and insert caption. And so here we can enter our title or caption. We're going to leave it as figure 1, CT Lab FY, probably want to say fiscal year, if I spell that out actually, 24 circulation statistics. That's the text I've entered. So I'll click OK, and now I've got a caption inserted. And we can also right click and go to table properties. And here under the row tab, if there were multiple pages, we would actually want to uncheck allow row to break across pages. And if it flowed onto the table flowed onto page 2, we could select, right now it's grayed out, it's not an option because there's only one page, but we would want to select repeat as header row at the top of the page. That way, if the table spreads over 2 different pages, we're hearing the header row at the top of that page 2 as well, in addition to the bottom of page 1. So that's an important setting to know about for tables. The other tab in this table properties window that is helpful to know about is the alt text. So here I have already taken the liberty of adding some alt text to the table just in the interest of time, but you can give the table its title. You can give it its description, which in this case I've said fiscal year 2024 circulation statistics for the Connecticut Library for Accessible Books. Data is presented by item type and the number of circulations for each item type. I think that's probably a sufficient description or alt text. Anything beyond that would be probably a little bit too much. Remember, you can always put text before or after the table if you wanted to have more of a discussion of the data in addition to the table. In fact, I would recommend that you do that if you could, just so there's additional information. So I'll click OK, and notice with those most recent changes, the status bar of our accessibility assistant has gone from investigate to good to go. So again, keep in mind this accessibility checker is checking for color and contrast to a certain extent. It's looking for alt text, it's looking for table stuff, and it's looking for heading structure. It doesn't do the document title. It doesn't do list structure. So those are things, like I was saying earlier, that we just have to be mindful of like referring to other sources just to make sure we've hit all of the important elements. But at this point, we've got a document that would be considered accessible and ready to go, and should be easy to use for sighted folks, anybody that's using keyboard navigation, anybody that's using a screen reader. Are there any questions about what we just covered?
I'll give folks a moment to put questions in the chat. One thing, Matt, and I did step away for a moment, so I don't know if you covered this. I know you covered the heading styles, but did you just show how Word sort of automatically adds additional headings if it recognizes that you've used up kind of what appears?
Yes, I didn't actually do that because I didn't apply. Let me just apply. So right now, we stop at heading level 3. As soon as I give Bard its heading level 3 assignment, notice here in the styles pane, there's that automatic heading 4. So it took care of that. The one thing that we would then want to do, of course, as we talked about, is I don't love this. Looks like I would want to bold this. I tend to bold my all of my headings. Um, Generally avoid italics if you can. Use bold to call out things, just because italics can be challenging for sighted folks, for folks who have reading differences, and so forth. So generally, bold is considered the preferred way if you want to call out um, information. You notice my caption for the table is italicized. I would probably want to change that.
Great, thank you. I am not seeing more questions. Oh, I see. I start speaking too soon. Okay. Um, so Julia is asking, how would you make forms that need to be filled out, like an application, accessible? Would this be made accessible in PDF or Microsoft Word? I will try to attach an example. And so she is attaching, it looks like a new library card application.
Yeah. The reading
Do you have
and
another hour, Julia?
yeah. Um, Julia, I will say, and this goes for anyone, I am happy to be a resource for folks going forward. So if you have specific questions like this, I'm happy to work with you and your colleagues at your library on this. In most cases, I've the reading I've done is that you wouldn't want to use Microsoft Word for an accessible, fillable form. You would, in fact, want to use PDF format. However, you would start with an accessible document, a Word document. Um, so you could create the sort of layout that you want, the different fields for the information you're collecting, like name, street address, whatever, in Word, and then export it as a PDF. And there's some extra steps because we talked briefly about accessibility tags. Then you have to properly tag the form fields so that the screen reader user understands and the screen reader understands these are form fields. Um, so I'm happy to share more information about that, Julia. If you want to follow up with me directly, we can have an additional conversation. Just also, when we do our PDF session, I will probably point out where you would do this, but we're not going to have enough time in 60 minutes to really look at how to create the form fully. But if this is a topic that folks, especially I think library card applications would be something to keep in mind. We can add a session that's about forms and create a form and do that together. The other option I will say is consider if you have a way of an even better way would be to do a fillable form on your website, if that's an option for you.
Um, Matt, there are a couple folks chiming in that a PDF fillable form session might be
Okay.
useful. I can
Yeah.
also share that we internally have been having this conversation, Matt and I at DLD, because I recently I realized I have a form that is a Word document and realize I need to be making that more accessible. And I know Matt just completed a project where he created a PDF fillable form. So this is top of our minds as well. So it's good to hear. I think a library card application makes perfect sense as to why this could be useful for many of us.
Yeah. Happy to do that. And I will say, do consider, in addition to having a PDF version of your application, if there's a way that you can have it be an accessible, fillable form on your website.
I
HTML
mean,
is generally considered very accessible. So, in the context of my work at CT Lab right now, the applications are either hard copy applications or fillable PDF. But our parent organization, our federal partner, the National Library Service, is working on creating a, a web-based accessible fillable form. And that truly is the better solution, in my opinion. And I think generally regarded as, if that's an option for you, go with the HTML fillable form. But that said, we can still offer a session because it's a good thing to know about.
Absolutely. If folks
All
have
right.
other questions, I'm not seeing any at the moment in the
Okay.
chat, Matt, but
So I'm going to go back. Is my slide deck showing?
yes, it
All
is.
right. All right. So briefly, we have a few minutes. This is going to be real quick. That way we have a few more minutes for questions. But for emails, basically everything that we talked about up until now also applies to emails. So consider the fonts that you're using, consider the font size. It is possible in Outlook. I know not everybody uses Outlook as their client, but at least in Outlook, you can assign headings so you can give structure to your email. So if it was for instance, here at the State Library, Ashley and Suzanne, when they post something to contact, there are different sections of the email about an upcoming program. We're using heading levels or heading structure to denote those different sections of our communication that goes out. You can use list structure. You can use alt text for images that you're embedding in the body of your email. And of course, you can use descriptive links. And also, just an important thing to consider too, if you're using images as part of your email signature, add alt text. And that might be if it's, just a hyperlink, a link to your library website, or if it's promoting a specific event. I know sometimes, different institutions will create different signature images based on timely events or programs or fundraising drives, so forth. So just consider adding alt text to those, or just mark it as decorative if you don't think it's conveying anything other than like your library logo. Because if you've got your library name somewhere else in your signature, you don't necessarily need the library logo to be read out loud. So uh, just let's, so my version of Outlook might be different than yours. Oop, sorry, but I'm going to open quickly an email. All right. So when I click into the body of my email here, things were just slow for a second. You can see I've got just the simple ribbon here, but of course, here's where we can select our font size, bold. I do need to use the more formatting options, at least with the display I'm using. When I do that, I get my options for things like font color, bulleted lists. So this is where I can ensure that I'm adding list structure to my body. Here, just to the right of that, is the styles pane. Unfortunately, at least in this version of Outlook that I have, I haven't found a way to change and modify the heading styles, like the color and size and so forth, in Outlook. So I think as far as I can tell, I'm stuck with this color blue and the sizes they give me. If I try to manually make those changes over here, it no longer becomes a heading style, is what I've found. Uh, so so yeah, that's just a quick introduction. And this is, just to show you generally where you can be looking for this information. There, of course, you can find insert format. Here is if you were adding pictures, and then once the picture is added, just like in Word, you can click on it and right click to add the alt text. So that is just the super quick explanation of Outlook and Word, but same rules apply basically, um, and same considerations. And like I said, it varies a little bit from different. I'm using the new version of Outlook. I think Ashley you're still using the older client, desktop client.
I am. I'm hanging
Uh,
on.
yeah. So my version, I think, is more akin to what people are using, like if they're using the web-based version of Outlook. Um, so yes, it's all there though, whether you're using the old version or the new version. So, but it may not be in the same exact place as Word. Uh, I want to leave a few minutes for questions. I'm happy to stay a little bit beyond 11:30 if we have questions. But as I said to earlier, you're welcome to contact me, email me directly if you have questions that arise in the future, and happy to consult with you and colleagues about accessibility questions. And that goes for what we covered today with Word, but also if you're attending the future sessions and want help with other document types as we move forward, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I'll do my best to help you out. My email address, I'll just read it out loud, is matthew.giza@ct as in Connecticut .gov as in government. And we can probably post that in the chat too in a second. So, and while I'm giving folks a chance to type in their final questions into the chat, here's the upcoming dates for the additional sessions in this mini series. I think these were probably the links to the registrations were already posted in the chat. Suzanne's probably going to drop them in again. But again, 2 weeks from now, February 19th, we're going to talk about PowerPoint, then Excel on March 5th, accessible PDFs on March 19th, and April 2nd, we're going to do open office hours. So this will be a chance just to come by with any of your questions, and we'll do your best to answer your questions during that session. And of course, you're welcome to email me with questions before then. So you don't have to wait till office hours if you don't want to. All right. With that, if it's okay with you, I'm going to stop sharing and be happy to take any final questions.
I am not seeing any questions in the chat at this point, Matt. I am seeing lots of thanks, and some people have already registered for all of our upcoming sessions, so that is exciting. Yeah, they seem very appreciative. Suzanne, I just saw dropped the link to our evaluation. You can click on it there, or you'll get it in a follow-up email as well. But I think at the moment we're good, Matt. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully this leaves you feeling a little bit more comfortable about creating accessible Word documents. And please do reach out if you have questions. But we'll wrap things up here. And thank you again. You feel free to sign off.